Hello, everyone. I hope people are doing okay. I have to tell you, I just left the Palisades, just got home from an hour trip, going up for a positive occasion. We were there with the FEMA representative from Washington, D.C., Cal OES. We had the state, the city, the county, all there to say that we are now in phase two. So I'm very excited about that and excited that we actually made California history because this is the fastest hazardous waste removal in a disaster area in California history. What we thought was going to take several months is now completed and we're moving into phase two. So this is exciting, but however, today we know that tomorrow the rains are going to come, and we're expecting the rains to be very heavy on Saturday. I'm not on Saturday, I'm sorry, on Wednesday and Thursday, with Thursday being the heaviest. So we know the rains are there. I want you to know that the city offices are ready with sandbags and K-rails, and I think that we are well positioned. We do hope that it's not going to be that bad and we won't have debris flows, but we are all prepared for that. And so the other thing that I'm very excited about is that tomorrow we will open officially the One-Stop Center. We've had so much success at the Disaster Recovery Center, now over 6,000 Angelenos visiting, and I'm hoping that we'll have the same type of attendance at the One-Stop Center. And I know we'll do an entire webinar about that, and we'll talk about it a little bit more today. But I just hope that everybody will be prepared to visit because all of the appropriate city departments are there. One thing that I do want to point out, though, for Palisadians, we need about 1,600 more right of entry forms to be filled out for you to decide whether you opt in or opt out. So please call all of your neighbors and make sure that they've turned in their forms. And the best way to do it is if blocks could do it together, because that will allow the Army Corps of Engineers to go in and take care of an entire neighborhood rather than hitting individual homes. So that's the way that everybody can participate. I'm excited that we're moving forward. I know we have so much more to do, and we are going to stay focused with our North Star, which is getting you back at home. So thank you very much, everybody, for your cooperation. Let's get those final 1,600 forms. So thank you, and we will proceed on, and I will proceed to introduce your favorite councilwoman, Tracy Park.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's good to see you. And thank you so much for continuing to host these town halls to give our Palisades community the space to get these updates. This is really important. I'm really excited to hear tonight about the One-Stop Shop Permitting Center, which is going to open tomorrow. The DWP's power restoration efforts, which have been nothing short of heroic. The EPA's progress with phase one. I mean, it's remarkable that we are now kicking off phase two, as well as the storm preparation efforts. Obviously, it's the last thing we need, but we are looking at heavy rain ahead starting tomorrow and lasting through Friday. The current forecasts indicate that these storms are likely to be much worse than we've seen over the last couple of weeks. So a few words of caution as we head into the next few days. If folks can, we strongly encourage them to stay off the road until the storms pass. And if you can, stay away from the Pacific Palisades and PCH during that time. It will help a lot. Even though our Public Works Department have been assessing the area and we have deployed thousands of feet of K-rail and sandbags, and we've done a lot of mitigation, the threat of flooding and debris flow are very real. So we just ask for everyone's cooperation in keeping people and the area safe. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and we'll talk to everyone real soon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council Member. Up next, we are going to hear from the Environmental Protection Agency Incident Commander Tara Fitzgerald.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me this evening to discuss where we are within the Palisades fire footprint. As most of you know, EPA is conducting phase 1 household hazardous material removal throughout the Palisades at this time. And that phase 1 includes removing materials such as pesticides, fuels, propane tanks, and lithium-ion batteries, which continue to pose a risk if left at the parcels without being removed and properly processed and sent to appropriate disposal facilities. So I'm happy to report that we have completed, I think I'm ready to look at the slide for the reporting.
Next slide, please, Liz.
So we have here where we are, and this is specific to the Palisades fire as of yesterday evening. We've completed 2,075 phase 1 removals throughout the Palisades, and we've also deferred 934 properties to phase 2. And I'll give a brief overview, which will also be available in our story map, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But deferred to phase 2 means that there was a safety issue that prevented the EPA from completing the phase 1 process. And the phase 1 process will occur concurrently with phase 2 once that safety hazard has been removed. This is things like remnant walls, like walls that are standing that are at risk of falling over, that don't allow us to enter the property, etc. So that is where we are to date. We have a little over 50 teams in the field throughout the Palisades. We are preparing for the rain as we did last week. We are in close coordination with the Department of Public Works for concerns about mudslides, and plan to work as usual, and simply monitor the situation, and working with our state and local agencies to determine that we are good to continue safely, and if not, we will stand down during the worst of the rain. We can go to the story map if you'd like.
Why don't we do this, Tara? Thank you so much for the update and tremendous progress in phase 1. What I recommend is that we go ahead and proceed with the Army Corps of Engineers. We have Colonel Swenson, and then at the end, as we move into Q&A, we can come back and do the story map. Unless you had more to present?
No, I think the plan was that we were going to do all the EPA at one time.
Yes. I think we had planned to do the EPA all at once, but it looks like we may be having some technical difficulties with the story map. So let's go ahead and proceed, and we'll come back to it as soon as we wrap up the rest of the slides. Thanks for your flexibility. And now we'll have phase 2 update with Colonel Swenson from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Well, good evening, LA City. It's an honor to be on this call again today, and I just echo the mayor in her comments. We are so happy to have started phase 2 private property debris removal in the Palisades today. It is truly an exciting day, and it was a great event to see work being done on your residences and making the first meaningful step in getting the fire ash and debris removed from an uncontrolled environment to a controlled environment. So what you see on the slide here is that we are working right behind the EPA, and as EPA finishes lots with their household hazardous material, and we have a right of entry, we are moving into phase 2. So you'll just see a list of things that we will take from the properties and as part of the phase 2 debris removal process, things like chimneys, hazardous trees, fire ash and debris, foundations if the owner opts in for the foundation in the right of entry, up to 6 inches of soil in the ash footprint. So that's the ash footprint is where the property that the home would have settled after the fire onto the ground. So that's the edge of the ash footprint. And we take 6 inches of soil from there towards the foundation, and then we remove the foundation if requested. And then any titled properties such as burned vehicles, eligible vehicles, trailers, boats, etc. So that's the process. We don't always go in that exact same order. It depends on the uniqueness of the property. Obviously, if we have hazardous trees blocking our entrance or being a direct threat to our crews, we'll remove those first. And then when we're done, we will circle back and do a final inspection to make sure we have it all before returning the right of entries back to the local government. I will also like to say that, as I've said many times, we treat every survivor as a partner in this. And so 3 to 5 days out, we'll give you a phone call. A day before, we'll give you another phone call. We'll ask if you're interested in coming out and observing the private property debris removal on your parcel. And if you are, we'll just make sure you stay at a safe distance, but we would love to hear from you and any comments you may have during our initial 360-degree assessment, which is the walkthrough we do to make sure we've identified all of the eligible property. So we're taking exactly what's eligible and understanding what things you may want us to be sensitive to or look out for that may not be included in our program. And I just can't stress enough, again, what the mayor had said. We would love for everyone to opt into this program so that we can quickly remove the fire ash and debris from neighborhoods and allow neighborhoods to rebuild as quickly, as safely possible. And with that, I'll pause.
Thank you, Colonel Swenson. I think if you could review this slide as well regarding our progress to date, which is very exciting.
Yes, thank you. So we have about 60% of the rights of entry. Now, again, the rights of entry process is being, for LA City residents, is being managed by the LA County. So I encourage everyone to go to recovery.lacounty.gov to find out any information, any latest updates on the fire or the debris removal process. They can sign up for a right of entry there. Also, we have our own debris hotline. So if you have a specific question about the Army Corps program, you can call 213-308-8305. Again, we look forward to hearing from you. We look forward to getting everyone to sign up so we can get out and clean this fire ash and debris and these public health and safety risks that are in open, uncontrolled environment, and get them quickly controlled so that you can rebuild your lives and livelihoods back in the Palisades. Thanks.
Thank you, Colonel Swenson. Next up, we have our CEO and Chief Engineer at the LA Department of Water and Power, Janice Quiones.
Thank you, Colonel. Good evening, and thank you so much for having me. I want to start by acknowledging that what has happened is heartbreaking, but I want you to know that we here at LADWP are by your side. I have about over 130 crews working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day to restore power and water services to your homes. We have announced a big announcement today that we have restored power to nearly all the homes that can take power. That means that if your house had it's able to take power from us, we're able to provide you power. We have some temporary power generators in place because there's areas where the reconstruction of the line is intensive. So we're putting temporary generations, but you will see our crews coming in with new poles and stringing more wires. Our repairs are temporary, but to the permanent standard, meaning that we are putting about 400 temporary poles. We string more than 50,000 feet of wire, 4.8 kV wire, and replacing more than 2,000 feet of service, our secondary wire. And we're installing transformers in locations that you've probably never seen before. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that we energize as fast as possible. But I want to ensure you that the plan forward and the long-term plan is that we're going underground for all of Palisades. But in the meantime, in order to provide power so that you can go back to your house faster, we're doing all this temporary to permanent construction. So when you go to your house, please know that we have put a door hanger in your house. We have verified that we have power to your house, and that if you do not have power, please call 1-800-DIAL-DWP or go to LADWP/outages to report the power outage, and we will send a crew out. But before you do that, go into your panel and check if your circuit breakers are set up correctly, and then call us if you don't have. We'll send somebody immediately to restore your power. On the water restoration side, I know this is a hot topic, and trust me, we're bringing every personnel that has water quality qualifications to do to be part of the water restoration. It's a long process. This comes from a law that happened, a regulation that happened after the Paradise Fire up north, which requires that if you burn more than 300 acres, you have to do an extended testing for benzene and VOCs. We have been working tirelessly to clean up the water in our system. Good news is our system wasn't impacted from an assessment perspective. Our pipes were intact. And so we're in the process of flushing the pipelines, stagnating the water for 72 hours, and then taking samples. We have to take about 10% of the structures that have been damaged of samples, and then sending those samples to our lab, and the results from the labs send them to our regulator, which is the Department of Drinking Water. If we find any samples with readings, we have to most likely either do localized testing or redo the testing in some areas. So until we clear all of the samples with any readings, we cannot lift the do not drink water, but we're in constant communications with our state regulator, the Department of Drinking Water, to ensure that we do this in the most safe way for you so that you are confident that the water that you're getting is of the highest quality. Also, like in power, if you go to your home and you see that you don't have water, please call us. We had to shut down about 5,000 services that were leaking in order to pressurize the system. We were able to pressurize the system back in January 17. And so we'll send a crew to re-energize your system, make sure that you have water pressure in your system, and effect any repairs into the area, and just so that there's no leaks. Also, we have started a Unified Utilities Rebuild Operations Center at the Pacific Rec Center that will be opening on March 1st, and is our full service center for utilities coordinations and getting your utility plans reviews and approved. I have dedicated water and power crews to that center, just specific to the rebuild of the Palisades. So you don't have to go on the back of the line for service connections. Those crews will be there, our planners will be there, our engineers will be there to ensure that your process is as smooth as possible. We'll also be waiving connection fees and account deposits for all affected customers, and our customer service reps will be on site to support you with any customer service needs that you have. And final, I have some of my teams here, one from Water, John Banacor, who's our incident commander at the center, and Jonathan Leong, our director of water quality, to answer any questions you might have. But you have our commitment that we will be there till the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate all the tremendous work that DWP has done and the progress made. Mayor Bass, back to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Janice. I think that is an important step forward for Palisadians to be able to go back home. And so here's another important step. You've heard us talk about it a lot. Here's the location, 1828 Sawtell Boulevard. We have been anxiously awaiting this, the one-stop rebuilding center, where in one place you can go to every city office and discuss your desire, your interest, your plans to rebuild. And hopefully this will allow people to begin feeling a little bit of normality and hope that life will go forward and people will return to the Palisades. So rather than waiting for the completion of phase 2 to begin the rebuilding process, you can start right now. So please visit the One Stop Rebuilding Center. And don't be shy about giving us your feedback. So we're going to set this up. We hope that it is going to make your ability to rebuild much smoother without bouncing back and forth between different offices. But we'd like to know from you if it's meeting your needs, if it does what we are planning, if there is something we are missing that we need to add. One area that was not necessarily a part of the rebuilding process, but I want to have housed in the rebuilding center, and that is mediation resources. because I imagine that there might be differences with neighbors who are next door to each other or nearby each other about how one is rebuilding and another. Maybe one wants to put more units, you know, in a single family area. Whatever the difference might be, I want to make sure that people have mediation resources, if it's with the insurance company, if it's with the city, or if it's with neighbors. So anyway, I look forward to seeing you there. I will be there tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to kick off the Los Angeles One Stop Rebuilding Center. Thank you, everyone.
And Mayor Bass, we have one more slide for you on
Yes.
storm preparation.
Well, while we're moving forward, we know we have to deal with the rains that are coming. So we just wanted you to know that we have done all of the preparation, the planning, 7,500 K-rails or the concrete barriers, 6,500 sandbags. You can call your nearest fire station, or you can go on lacity.gov for a location for where you can pick up sandbags. So we're going to try to do everything we can, get through this. This is supposed to be the most difficult rain of the season so far. We have made it through this. We'll make it all the way. And so tomorrow and the next couple of days will be our next effort to make sure that we get past the rains and can then just focus on the rebuilding and phase 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Bass. And we will now turn to Q&A, but want to go through the instructions on how to do that. If you have a question, I know many of you have already put questions and many have also had questions answered. In the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A with a little talk bubble with a question mark. You're welcome to put questions into that system, and there will be an answer that comes back to you, some of which we will lift up verbally here as we go. So we can go ahead and pull down that slide. And before we go to verbal questions, I do want to provide EPA Incident Commander Tara Fitzgerald with the opportunity to come back onto screen and share a really wonderful story map that has been developed by the US EPA. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Tara, and if you could walk folks through how to use it, that would be excellent.
Certainly, thank you. I see it come up. Okay, so this is our parcel status lookup map. And as you can see, it is color coded. The parcels that are shown here are the parcels that were damaged or represent parcels that were damaged or destroyed in the fire. And what we have is an ability for residents to see what their status is for phase 1 completion. As you can see in the legend, the yellow color means that phase 1 is needed. The blue means phase 1 is complete. The deferred to phase 2 means, and it states here, unsafe parcel conditions precluded EPA from completing phase 1. The Army Corps will complete deferred phase 1 work during phase 2 operations. Please note that right of entries still have to be submitted for deferred properties. And before I talk about typing your parcel in, I know we're going to do the ribbon cutting parcel here in a second, but I just want to point out there is a very small subset of parcels that are red that say no access. And what this means is that when we went to the parcel, while we could do the phase 1, we were for some reason precluded from accessing that parcel. It may be that there's a gate that is locked that we would not move past, or some other access issue. In the event that you type your parcel in and you see this no access status for your parcel, we can please call the hotline, which is on the website, but I will drop into the chat as well. And if you would like us to help us to complete the phase 1, we can discuss what that access issue is and how we can move past it and obtain access to do the phase 1. So this is a pretty small portion of the parcels. I think We only have 200 for all of the fires at this point, but we would like to be able to get that done for the homeowners. So with that, I know we were going to, you can type in your address at the top left, where I see Jenny's putting that in, and I think we have our address of it is 16915 Livorno. And so that will just zoom into the parcel of the residence, and it will tell you the status, which for this one, no surprise, we picked one that is phase 1 complete. So that is really the whole point. You can see your status, and there's also a lot of other good information if on the other tabs of the website. We don't have to go through it at this time, but it just provides more information on what we're doing, how we are tasked to do the work, and there's also a tab on our staging areas. Thank you for typing in the hotline number, and I'll drop the I see that also the SoCal Fires 2025 parcel status lookup is also in the chat. There's an easy website to add as well. I'll just drop it in here. That's easy to remember if you just want to. You don't want to have to deal with the links. So it's epa.gov/California wildfires. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you to the EPA for all the tremendous work and the progress made in an accelerated time frame under great unprecedented disaster, but also unprecedented response. So we appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to some questions from our participants today. I'd like to start with a question from Neil Alma. Neil is saying, I've heard that the Army Corps will not address properties that have a basement. Is that true? Colonel Swenson, could you please address that question?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I just actually tried to answer that in the Q&A. So basements are tricky, and basements are tricky because every basement is unique to that lot. And oftentimes when you dig a basement, you're digging down, maybe 8 or 10 feet. And so if we just remove the entire basement right away, irrespective of what's going on around it, we could cause slope destabilization. And if you're close to the property line of your neighbor, we could impact your neighbor's property. So we're very careful with how we do not only basements, but structural foundations, especially ones that have deep footers designed to hold not only the property in place, but to hold all the material, the land underneath where the house was in place. So for basements, they're more of a case-by-case scenario. Obviously, we recognize that you would like to get rid of it because you're going to need to get rid of it for your rebuild. But sometimes you have to, when you replace a basement, you have to sort of replace it and then immediately pour a new one. And so we want to make sure we're sensitive to your needs and your rebuilding and not destabilizing soil, which will cause you greater troubles in the future. So it's probably not the answer that you really wanted, but I would love to have a conversation with the owner about their basements so we can come up with a strategy that ensures the public safety and doesn't cause you additional work later. Over.
Thank you, Colonel. One more question for you while you're off on the camera here and on the hot seat. Lots of questions regarding foundations. So could you please clarify, are foundations included? Essentially, if you opt out of your foundation being included, can you opt back in or change your mind about the foundation in terms of the Army Corps' role in removing the foundation at a later time?
Yeah, so foundations are another area that we would obviously recommend, and the state would recommend that you opt in to have your foundation removed. There's several reasons why you would want to have your foundation removed. First of all, most people didn't build their own home; they bought someone else's home. So if you want to rebuild your home on a fire damaged foundation, you have to build to the same essential specs of your original house. Also, in California, it's really hard to get a permit to build on a fire damaged foundation because the heat, depending on the heat of the fire on your foundation. It can change sort of the chemistry of the concrete and can make it fall and be less structurally sound. No one wants to build a very nice home on a weak foundation. You're just going to have trouble later. Plus, if you build a foundation, if you build a new house, you generally want your utilities under the foundation, and the heat of the fire likely destroyed all those, so you'd have to retrofit them all in. Additionally, California is known for having asbestos. If you have asbestos on an old foundation, you're not going to want to rebuild your home on an asbestos foundation. Those are just a couple of the reasons why you would want to have your foundation removed. Also, when you sign up for our program and the right of entry, which is through the county, you basically hold us harmless for any incidental damage we do. We could damage your foundation as we try to remove all of the fire ash and debris. Those public health threats that brought us here, we could cause some damage to your foundation, so you'd have to get it removed later. But in talking to all the experts that live in California and have done this before, the popular choice, really your only choice for many people, is to have your foundation removed either by us or after the fact at your own cost. Now, I will tell you, if you have a foundation that has deep footers, where those footers are either holding it against the cliff, holding it against the seashore, or holding it against the side of a hill, we may not take your entire foundation, even if you opt in, because we don't want to cause a landslide or a disturbance of the soil that impacts you detrimentally or one of your neighbors downhill from you. So it's a complicated answer, but hopefully that provided some clarity for people. The last part of the question was, if you opt out of your foundation and later decide you want to opt in, I can't answer that decisively, but I would say that you should contact the county who manages the ROE process. And I think if you made the decision to change before we got there, I think they would accommodate that change. But that would be a question for the Department of Public Works at LA County. I hope that answered the question. Over.
Thank you, Colonel Swenson. And Mayor's Office team, if you could re-put that number back into the chat for the County Public Works Department to help the homeowners who are interested in more specific opt-in, opt-out, and the timing of when you can opt-in, opt-out, that would be very helpful. Colonel Swenson and Tara Fitzgerald from US EPA, we have a question that I think involves both of you from Karen Katie. She asked, what does deferred phase 1 mean? And what was that specifically mean for an individual homeowner or property owner who wants to opt out of phase 2? So deferred, what does that mean as it relates to those who want to opt out of phase 2? Tara, could you please start us off with what deferred means in phase 1? And then I think between the two of you to answer the question regarding those that opt out of phase 2, are they then responsible for doing the EPA process in their own phase 2 with their own contractor?
Yes. So again, so being deferred to phase 2 means that there was a safety issue that did not allow us to complete the HHM removal on a property. And that can range from, like I said, it's usually has to do with the structure being unstable and not being able to enter the area of the structure to remove the household hazardous materials. So that's the only reason we defer to phase 2. Otherwise, we complete the phase 1 process. As far as the consequences of the deferring to phase 2 and yet someone chooses to opt out with the Army Corps, I do have to direct that to the county. My understanding is that they are developing a process for that. I don't believe I have the details on what that looks like at this time.
Yeah, so I could jump in. So if you defer to if your property is phase 1 deferred for a hazard and you want to opt out, the county, as part of their permit process, will have a component in there for household hazardous materials. Essentially, the opt-out, regardless of which category you're in, if you opt out, you have to follow the same procedures that the Corps of Engineers and the same standards that the Corps of Engineers is held to. That includes everything from managing household hazardous materials that are on the property and safely transporting those to an appropriate debris stream, doing asbestos chip testing to make sure that your foundation does not have asbestos in it. And if it does, then you have to be have the certified contractor who can mitigate the asbestos, and then to do all the same debris removal using all the same haul routes and landfills that the Corps is being held to. And that is to make sure that all of the debris, regardless if it's green waste or if it's household hazardous materials, is properly delivered to an appropriate and permitted site to receive that material. Over.
Thank you, Colonel. We appreciate that. We have a series of questions in the chat regarding the one-stop rebuilding center, specifically regarding the hours and when it will open. So as a reminder, tomorrow is the grand opening of the One-Stop Rebuilding Center. It is going to be open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. On Saturday and Sunday, it will be open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Various departments will be on site. We can go ahead and put that list of departments in the chat. And the whole idea is to help you all do the work of permitting to get that parallel track ready so that you have your permits ready to go and can begin rebuilding as soon as your property's phase 2 is complete.
Can
We
we
can
put
also
the
answer
slide back
questions
up?
and so forth. Mayor Bass, yes.
Put the slide back up.
Oh, yes, great. If Liz, if you could please put the slide back up on the one-stop shop, that would be excellent. And another question that was in addition to the one-stop questions was in relation to the Disaster Recovery Center. The question was, is this center going to continue to be open now that we're opening the One-Stop Rebuilding Center? The answer is yes. The Disaster Recovery Center is designed for individual and family assistance in relation to FEMA resources, home loans through the Small Business Administration, other direct assistance related to your basic needs and navigating various departments at the city, state, and federal level, as well as the county. This One-Stop Rebuilding Center is focused on everything you need to do to rebuild your home versus direct assistance or financial assistance and other types of social services and so forth. So both will be open. This One-Stop Rebuilding Center will be open starting tomorrow, and the Disaster Recovery Center will be open likely through March, and that will continue to be located at Westwood and Pico at what used to be Westside Pavilion. We'll go on to another question from Colleen Mamtazi. The question is, are the Palisades closed tomorrow due to the rain? I heard it was only open due to two utility contractors. I believe this is in relation to PCH. Does this mean that we should tell our own contractors not to go to the Palisades tomorrow and Friday? I'm going to go ahead and ask our chief engineer for the engineering department here in the city of Los Angeles, Ted Allen, to please answer that question.
Yeah, it's somewhat of a public risk if we don't make it the roads closed. Everyone has to use their own choice, their own decision. Sorry, my lights went out. I would say if it's raining, it's probably better to not go in the hillside areas. As we get each rainstorm, there's more and more chance of mud flows coming down, and it's not worth risking safety. So if it's not raining, it's probably okay to go in. But as it starts raining, I would really recommend avoiding going into those properties.
Thank you, Ted. So the strong recommendation is for contractors and others to stay home tomorrow and Friday due to the weather conditions. Thank you, thank you. Safety first. Okay, I'm going to go on to a question from Ray Klosterman. The question is, what are the mandatory sign-offs required by the city for phase 2 completion if done privately or publicly? That includes asbestos testing, metal testing, and so forth. What else do folks need to clear? And I believe that I'm going to invite both Ted Allen back on from our Bureau of Engineering, as well as Colonel Swenson, who shared a little bit about that earlier, to provide what are the other types of mandated requirements if someone is to decide to go with phase 2 opt-out. Ted, why don't you go ahead and start us off, and then Colonel Swenson.
Yeah, sure. So the first starting point is they have to hire a certified asbestos consultant, and that certified asbestos consultant will need to either find that the site does not have asbestos, or they will need to remediate it to remove the asbestos and then certify that it's free of asbestos. Then they can apply. The county, I believe maybe as soon as tomorrow, but very soon the county will be setting up the second half of that process to get the full opt-out permit. That permit application will clearly outline the requirements, but essentially they'll need to then have a hazardous waste certified contractor remove the rest of the waste properly according to, the state hazardous waste handling rules, and they're kind of outlined in that application. They'll need to burrito wrap it, similar to what Army Corps is doing, that sort of thing, and remove 6 inches of soil, similar to Army Corps. And then when they're all done, they will need to submit their tip receipts for the landfills to the county. And so that process will all be outlined in that second half part of the permit application with the county.
Thank you. Colonel
And
Swenson.
I have nothing, yep, I have nothing to add. Ted did a great job. Thank you.
Excellent. Very good. Colonel Swenson, I do have one for you. Jeff Scruton, he is asking how many Army Corps of Engineer teams will be working phase 2 in the Palisades?
Well, that depends on how many rights of entry we get and how fast we get them. We could have as many as 75 crews working in the Palisades, but again, that just depends on the number of ROEs we get and how fast we receive them. And we could have, I guess, we could have more as well. I'm just, throwing out 75 as like as an initial max. I think what the absolute max is what is our carrying capacity on the roads and in our landfills, remembering that we have to respect the people who are trying to reoccupy this community so that we don't overwhelm them and tie up all of the roads over.
Thank you. Colonel Swenson, I have another one for you. Michael Schwimmer. Michael is asking, every house on my block except mine was deferred to phase 2. My home had phase 1 completed. Will that delay my phase 2?
No, it won't. As long as we get the ROE, it will not delay your phase 2. We are not going to hold any one ROE waiting for more to come. It just makes the process faster if we get multiple ROEs in the same neighborhood, because I don't have to move my equipment sets around as often. And the less time I spend driving an equipment set around the Palisades, the more time I spend actually working on removing these hazardous materials and the remnants of this fire.
Okay, thank you. And I believe I'm going to invite Chief Engineer Ted Allen back on to help answer this next one. There's a series of questions in regards to public information regarding phase 2. We saw the really nice EPA story map. And so there's a hunger for information about phase 2. I know that's really led by the county and the Army Corps, but I think, Ted, you have some information about some information coming soon that perhaps we can at least give folks a heads up that there is some degree of a dashboard on its way. Ted, how would you answer the question of when can we know when we're going to be up for phase 2 and what the progress in specific neighborhoods looks like in terms of phase 2? We'll go to Ted and then Colonel Swenson.
Yeah, and I'll defer to Colonel on the Army Corps status side, but for the county, we'll be handling the opt-out process for phase 2. And so they'll be standing up, I believe as early as tomorrow, the ability to apply for that, but they're also working on standing up a public-facing status viewer so people will be able to see the status of the applications and whatnot. And similar also with the opt-ins, we had a lot of questions from people opting in saying they hadn't heard back yet. And I was texting with the county to check on those, and they said they're starting to reach back out to everyone that opted in this week to clarify things and go through the rest of the process and move them on. So if you haven't heard from the county yet on your opt-in, you should hear from them soon, and you should be able to complete the second half of that opting out process very soon. And they do have a consultant working on standing up a public facing status page as well.
Thank you, Colonel.
Yeah, so thanks, Ted. Similar to the county, the Army Corps of Engineers will have a public-facing viewer. It'll be likely similar to what the county has and similar to what EPA has, but it'll allow people to go in, enter their property address, and get some basic information about the status of our removal. I will also tell residents that every house will have a white sign in it with some check marks. So the first check mark on the upper left side is ROE received. And so if we have received your ROE from the county, that means that you are on some runway. Either you're on a phase 1 deferred runway, or you're on the phase 2 runway, and you should be getting a call, in a reasonable amount of time for us to come out and start doing private property debris removal on your lot. Again, we also have our call center number. If you have questions, we can try to give you some additional information. If you're not satisfied with what you get from our public viewer. And finally, the public viewer should be out, we anticipate, this Friday. And the link we'll have a link to our USACE website as well as to the county's website for ease of access. Over.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Another one for you, Colonel. Would the Army Corps of Engineers remove my destroyed car that is in during phase 2? This one is from Reginald Gilliard.
Reginald, we will absolutely take your titled property, such as your car that's in your driveway, assuming that it is burned, which it sounds like it is. It will be eligible. We will work with the county and the proper authorities to make sure we clear out the VIN number for that. And then that will get crushed and sent to a recycling center to be essentially recycled and to re-enter the supply chain. Thanks for the question.
Excellent. We have a couple of questions regarding townhomes and mobile home parks. The owner of the overall townhome complex, or in this case, sorry, condo complex, and then mobile home units, that obviously is a little bit more complicated than a single family home. Colonel Swenson, could you speak to that in terms of the rules and regulations regarding how ROE, right of entry forms, need to be submitted, and how those types of properties, mobile home parks, as well as condos or townhomes, will be treated, and how they'll be treated perhaps uniquely from single family homes?
Yes. Thank you. That's a great question. So similar to cars, mobile homes are often titled property. So I would absolutely recommend that the owner of a mobile home should submit an ROE. They're a bit trickier because oftentimes the mobile home owner, the ownership of the land is to the landlord or the property owner, and the mobile home just sits on that property. So they're a bit complex. And I don't know if we have all of the right answers of how we're going to treat each one of these, but I would definitely submit the right of entry. It's on my list of things to try to work out with the county and the city and FEMA on. And this is similar to condominiums. So condominiums, assuming they're eligible, what makes condominiums different than like a hotel or a mobile home park is that in many states, the condominium owner owns a piece of the ground. So they're essentially on the master deed. And so in that case, if they're eligible and if the condominium unit is eligible and all condominium owners opt in to the program, then we would get a master right of entry, which would be, let's say there's 36 units in a condo. We would get all 36 individual rights of entry. Then that would give us a master right of entry, and then we would be able to do that property. But again, like certain foundations, like certain basements, like mobile homes, condos can be in a unique category, and we really encourage you to reach out to us if you're in one of those situations, so that we can give you the best advice. And I think the first person I reach out to is the county, and then you can always use our call center. And if my call center can't answer the question, because again, this can be complicated, they will find me and I will call you back and we will work through an answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Colonel. I'll let you off the hook for the next question here. We actually have a question for the City of Los Angeles Sanitation Department. I know our general manager of the Sanitation Bureau is on the line, Barbara Romero. Barbara, this is a question for you regarding pools, and there have been a series of questions regarding pools over the course of our webinars that the mayor has been hosting. This question is for Margot Metzner. She's asking, we need to get the toxic water and ash out of our pool before it destroys the plaster, but we can't empty the pool. We need guidance on how to do that. And we also can't refill the pool because of the issues with the water in the area at the moment. And we're concerned that perhaps our pool will crack if it's not refilled. Barbara, what can you say about pool owners and how to handle pool issues? And I know we're working on some guidance. So when will that be out so that everybody has these questions answered to the best of our ability?
Thank you, Jenny. And I just want to say we are, like you said, working on some protocols to really guide what they can do with not only the debris, but the actual remaining water that's there. Residents right now, in the meantime, residents are directed to follow the guidance from LA County Department of Public Health on swimming pools that have been impacted, which includes steps of how to clean and rebuild the pools if you need to and protect it. What we recommend in the short term is do not discharge the pool water to the gutter or the storm drain system. Use any kind of like pool net or your pool pool professional to remove the floating debris. And and then do not discharge. Well, and we do not recommend to discharge the water because it could have unintended consequences in our sewer system at this point. So we hope that by the end of the week, we will have some guidance for all of you on how to deal with it so that we're consistently taking account to all the considerations. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Barbara. And yes, we will get that guidance out by the end of the week. That's a commitment here from the city of LA. Thank you all for your patience, as Barbara said. And this is helpful for us to understand the various issues that you're grappling with so we can make sure that guidance is as comprehensive as possible.
Absolutely.
We have only a few minutes left. And so I wanted to actually go back to an item that was raised earlier in regards to street closures and what about contractors and so forth. So I want to clarify a little bit more clearly than we did before. There was a question raised about the rains and what about contractors and so forth? Are they able to get in? Okay, so what we do know is that PCH is still closed. The only individuals that are able to get into PCH are those who are contractors because of the weather conditions and mud flow, etc. Okay, so PCH is still closed. No contractors or residents are able to access PCH. Chautauqua and other access points to the Pacific Palisades are open for residents and contractors with passes. However, the guidance, as stated earlier, is that we are not encouraging folks to go to their homes and do work with the weather conditions that we anticipate throughout the rest of this week and over the weekend. So again, closure of PCH is still in effect. Other areas through Chautauqua and other streets are open. However, we're discouraging active work in the Palisades at this point in time due to the weather conditions that are coming, especially Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. All right, with that, we have one more question I think we have time for here, and then we'll go ahead and announce our next webinar for Thursday, and the mayor will be able to wrap it up. The question is actually for the Army Corps, Colonel Swenson, if you could come back on. It's from Siri Kasla. I was told that the Army Corps engineers will not clean up ash on properties where there is a home that is still standing, nor on hillsides behind homes that are just land. Is this true?
Well, thanks, Siri, for that question. And yes, that's true. We only take eligible debris. So those are normally structures that have been impacted by the fire. It could be, it could also be titled property such as a car, or in cases of if you have a lot that just has a hazard tree that's been impacted by the fire, then those may be eligible as well. But sort of damage down in a person's backyard, on a fence line, that is not eligible property. Smoke damage is not eligible. If you have eligibility questions and concerns, I strongly encourage you to reach out to the county. And we had the number was given earlier. If you really believe you have you're eligible, then you should submit the right of entry, and there'll be an eligibility determination made. Over.
Excellent. And we have
Ready?
our General Manager for the Sanitation Bureau, Barbara Romero. Please feel free to add in.
So I just want to add in that if you get your ashes, someone to pick up your ashes, you know, we will accept that ash if you double bag it in a bag in your black bin, and we'll pick it up on Tuesday, your collection day. So that is something that we're offering. If you have bigger stuff that has been burned or damaged, just call. We'll treat it as a bulky item. And again, if you just wrap it around, and we'll take care of it, and you have a couple of things, we'll come back because we're trying to make sure that we provide some support to all you that don't have that are not part of the EPA or Army Corps program. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Very, very helpful. All right. We're going to go ahead and pull up the next slide, which will share a little bit more information about our next webinar. Mayor Bass, I'll invite you to come back on and close us out.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny, and I want to thank our Army Corps of Engineer Colonel Swinson and Barbara Romero, our General Manager from Sanitation. And Jenny, I hope that we are getting all of the questions sent to people, emailed out. So hopefully, because there were a lot of questions in the chat, I want to make sure that we get to all of them. One question I saw, and I'm not sure we got to, and that was, where can you get a list of contractors from? So we want to make sure that people have that answer. But I want to tell everyone about this Thursday. We are going to open up the Impacted Workers Recovery Center. I'm telling you this because if you owned a business impacted and your employees are now out of work or need assistance, you can go to lacity.gov and get the address for a center near you. The centers will be in West LA, South LA, Boyle Heights, and Sylmar. If you had individuals that worked on your property, gardeners, nannies, housekeepers, please tell them about our Impacted Worker and Family Recovery Center and assistance. They can get assistance with with benefits, and also with job search while they are waiting to return home to the Palisades. So please, your employees, whether they worked in your business or they worked in your home, please let them know about this. While we are obviously focused on the rebuilding, we don't want to lose sight of all of those individuals that did not live in the Palisades, but worked or were connected to businesses in the Palisades. So thank you very much for participating in the webinar this evening, and we will see you Thursday evening, where we will report on how the One Stop Center is going and what happened on our first day of the Impacted Workers Center. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor. And just to make sure you and everybody else is aware, we do have the frequently asked questions documents that have been circulated over the weekend. Folks should have received that via email. We'll also go ahead and put a link into the chat. So many of your questions from these very webinars have been compiled into a mass frequently asked questions document where you can get your questions answered. And we'll continue to do that after every single webinar.
Thank you, everyone.